JPEF is an organization that Deborah and I became involved with in about 2005. It is the sole organization that we're aware of that has gone out and made it its mission to teach the legacy of the partisans to the next generation and the generation after that.
He was an extrovert. He would be very friendly. He would, make people feel comfortable. And I think what came out of those things was usually his energy, his sense of humor, his devotion, all those qualities that are Steve.
I'm wearing this cast to garner the sympathy vote tonight, especially when we go to the fundraising few minutes that we're going to have a little bit later on.
We both knew that story of the partisans and that resistance was a story that wasn't told very often. And Steve's involvement with it and his caring about it is like he did everything else in his life. Full force, full heart. It's like everything else he did, like with his parents and I think with his children and his work. When he was involved and he wanted to get something accomplished, he gave it his all. So that's part of his legacy of, how he was as a human being.
He rebelled a lot as a kid against a household that was more disciplined. And as a parent, he had a very different philosophy. His parenting philosophy was that nothing that I ever experienced in life was supposed to shock me. When he became a grandfather, he was suddenly on the floor rolling around with kids, making silly faces, honking their noses, tickling them. He loved that.
Steve is all around is a very beloved person, whether in business or in socially, in family. And in later years when he lived in the city and his parents lived in the city, he would go to their house for breakfast every day. I mean, I don't know anybody else who does that or did that.
I was talking to one of his longest serving clients recently. He was saying that 2 years after his death, he still can't get through a transaction without asking himself, what would Steve do in this situation?
He would always give you the extra mile, go the extra mile, do what needed to be done to accomplish the goal. And that, that was in work, and I think, in just plain life.
One of the things he really connected with was the idea of being resilient and how important it was to be able to dust yourself off, get back up, and try again. And when I think about some of the more challenging periods in my life and his life, I'm in awe of his ability to keep pushing, to keep going, and I see it in my grandmother Rose as well. I marvel at that strength and that resilience, and I think it's a wonderful lesson to carry on.
Even those of us who were children of the survivors are now becoming alta cockers. And it's so important, really important, for our children and grandchildren to carry on the legacy.
I remember how much he looked forward to hosting the JPEF Gala a few years ago. I think some of it was about wanting to honor his parents, and especially my grandmother who was there for it. But I think a lot of it had to do with how much he cared about the cause.
I think it's an appropriate award, the Heart of a Lion, because he had a big heart and he had the roar of a lion. He had the heart to do what he had to do, and he loved, and he's a very loving person, but he had the roar and the ability to be tough and to do what needed to be done, and he was not afraid of being who he was. And I love him very much, and I miss him. I really miss him. He was a big presence, and there's not another Steve around, that's for sure.
On behalf of my sister Liz, my Aunt Gloria, Deborah, my grandmother Rose, I want to thank JPEF for giving my father Steve the Lev Aryeh Award. Even if he probably would have turned it down because he wouldn't have liked being the center of attention, JPEF has been a tremendous influence in his life and in our family's life. And we're really appreciative of this recognition.